Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for hanging with me on this Friday. Now, I want to point out one of the most consistent inconsistencies that I have run into fishing. I watch a lot of fishing videos. I've learned from a lot of people, and nobody is talking about this, but it's very consistent. Me and my buddies, other fishermen that I've been around, standing at tournaments, we have agreed on this, and it doesn't get put out there enough, so I want to dive into how often you will go out on a lake and you will catch all of your fish on different lures. So yesterday I did a video about 2 baits are very important when the fishing gets tough. Now we need to talk about the days where it takes 5 baits to have a decently good day on the water and why that happens. Sometimes it's because the fish are in a transition, so you don't have a dominant pattern going on in your lake. You have a bunch of things going on, and you really need to just feel out a bunch of things and know that not one thing is really any good. So once you catch a fish doing it, that probably means you're at least a couple hours away from catching another fish doing it. And the other way that this happens is from fishing pressure, which is very common on most any lake, but especially the historic lake. So I'm going to dive into those as well in this video. But guys, I want to thank you. 2025, it's a new year. Thank you guys for watching these videos. You've really helped this channel out a lot, so I appreciate you for doing that. The likes, subscribing to the channel, all that stuff really helps me and my family out a lot, so thank you guys for doing that. All right, so the only way you figure this whole thing out is you run down a bank of rock or you're in a grass bed and you catch a bass, and then you fish for an hour or two and you don't catch another bass, and then the first thing you go and do differently, you pick up a new bait, you catch a fish. You know, you leave that rock bank, you leave that grass bed, you go to a dock, you go to a stump, you go to a lay down, catch a fish on it, your first cast. Then you're like, well, we figured it out. So you go and do that for an hour or two, and then you realize that that's also not working. So that's just a pattern within a pattern. The pattern is there is no pattern. You may have heard of that before, but the key to this whole thing is understanding those times where this is going to happen. So here it is, because I think it's important to understand that it's not just tough fishing days, you know, like the post-spawn or really cold weather. I think you can get away with just 2 baits. But when we are in a big time transition, or you have a lake that is just basically being shut down by fishing pressure, that's when you need to junk it up. Junk fishing, pretty common term, gets thrown out a lot. It's very cliche, but there are times here where junk fishing is very important. So I'm going to go into basically those little segments of the year where it goes down. So right now, for example, we're in the winter transition. So in the winter time, you will hear a bunch of different things. Now, the majority of the fish are going to be in the creek channel. They're going to be in the main river channels. We know that by the live scope dominating competitions going on right now. We also know that because there's just not a whole lot of fish on the bank. If you're out there graphing fish deep, you don't see a whole lot of fish deep either. So there is a big transition going on. There's not one thing that's really happening. So when it comes to shallow fishing, you will often see that fish will get in dirt, shallow water when the water is very cold. Now, 48, 50 degree water is months away from fish making that move to spawn. So why are they up there? And why are they sucking you in to go in and doing that? Because you catch a 7-pounder in 2 feet of water, you think, okay, all the fish are there, but it's January. They can't all be there for 4 months before they spawn. So it is a very confusing time. So that's the big kicker for me on this whole situation is when you are in a legit transition, patterns just aren't going to be the deal. So it doesn't just happen in the early pre-spawn winter months. It's also going to happen in the fall time. It's going to happen before the summertime. So you just have a lot of fish in different areas of the lake doing completely different things, feeding on different baits. So like I said earlier, don't wait until you fish for 2 hours without getting a bite. It's very important to figure this out quickly and realize, look, I'm going to go fish that. And then if I catch a fish or not, I'm moving on somewhere else and doing something completely different. Now, this is really a dominant way to fish. And you probably know of some professional fishermen that fish like this all year round because lakes around big tournaments typically shut down with the fishing pressure. So put anyone that has been very dominant in the last 10 years in this category. You know, the Gerald Swindles, the Brian Thrifts, that's how they fish. They fish by the seat of their pants, and they are not ever dialing in one technique. They're going to bounce all over the lake and do a bunch of different things, because that's what it takes when you have 200 boats on the water. They're out there for a week before the tournament. They are full of, you know, a co-angler and a pro. They know how to fish, so they're just sucking everything in, and the lake shuts down. It goes into a really tough mode. So any of the patterns that you may have figured out typically aren't going to last the normal span of time that they last. They're going to last a day or two, when a pre-spawn cranking pattern usually can last a couple of weeks. But if everyone's getting on it, it's going to be really hard for you to go find fresh water that fish have not already been picked off those pre-spawn cranking type spots. So guys, I want to basically throw that at you. Please leave me some comments, because I really like the discussion. This is one that I've heard in the bag line at tournaments. Hey, what did you catch your fish on today? You know, what's going on out there? We can't figure it out. The tournament's over. What is the deal? And it's, well, I caught one on this. I caught one on this. I caught one on this. Then I went out there and caught one. And then I came back right here and I caught one. You know, all over the lake, all different baits, no pattern. There was no definite pre-spawn thing going on. There was no definite post-spawn thing. So all these videos you watch that are teaching you about patterns, take it with a grain of salt and realize that it doesn't always happen that way. And it happens in a way where it's like, I caught one fish on a 1/2 ounce white chatterbait, caught one fish on a 1/2 ounce green pumpkin chatterbait, caught one on a jig flipping in a tree. I caught one on a crankbait first thing in the morning, and then I caught one on a lipless crankbait literally 10 minutes ago before I came in. That is how it goes. So when you think, well, I got 2 baits that I really like, let's mix in a 3rd one or a 4th one. No, it's like 12 rods on your deck, and 8 of them or 7 of them didn't work, and 4 or 5 of them did. And that's just the way it is a lot of times in fishing. So don't get too dialed in. Try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.